Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Shannon and this is Sewing with Nightmare. Today I'm going to be working on a Valentine's Day dress. I'm actually scheduled to work on Valentine's Day, but I have a very special date on Sunday night and I'm hoping to wear this dress for that date. I'm going to be using a vintage 1940s pattern that I got on Etsy, and this is the pattern from my vintage wish. I will link it in the description below where I got the pattern from. For the fabric, I'm going to be using this linen-rayon blended fabric that I got off of Mood, and it's really nice. It has like a really nice drape to it. I have already made several mock-ups for this dress and did a full bust adjustment, as this pattern is a size 34 bust. This fits considerably better than the 36 bust I used for my Christmas dress. I am excited to wear it for this date, so let's go get started. So here you can see that I am cutting out my lining fabric, and for the lining fabric I used a cotton bed sheet. This pattern does not have a hem allowance, so here I'm adding in about 3 inches for a hem allowance. In the final dress I didn't add that much because I didn't need that much. It ended up being entirely too long with the mock-up when I did the skirt. I did not choose to line the skirt part of the dress because I didn't feel like it was necessary, so in the end I only just used the top part. But in order to get a correct fit on this, I made sure to add the skirt to it so that I could see how it would fit with the skirt on it. So all in all, the fit was really good once I did my full bust adjustment, and I did a couple other adjustments to it as well. So here I'm cutting out the center back piece, and for this particular pattern it has you do an underarm closing or fastening, whatever kind they use. I chose not to do that. I chose to do a center back zipper, so I added a little bit of seam allowance back in to that back piece there, which ended up being unnecessary, and I ended up having to take some out. I also decided, since I did not want a center front seam as well on the skirt, I ended up cutting one of the skirt pieces on the fold, but I think that I cut it wrong in the mock-up. So in the final product, in the final dress, I ended up cutting it the correct way, and it looked fine and it laid fine. So here I am cutting into that actual fabric and trying to figure out how best to lay out the pattern pieces to optimize my fabric. Excuse my crazy outfit here. I had just gotten home from work and I was in my pajamas just getting ready for bed before cutting this out, because sometimes I don't have a lot of time. I usually get home pretty late, around 7:30, and then, I start my day relatively early. And I believe the next day I didn't really have a lot of time to work on it. So I went ahead and did it after I got home from work and got as much done as I could. Also, to note, with this pattern, there was some weird construction method with the sash. It only has you cut 2 instead of like cutting 4 and doubling them up. And I didn't really like the way it was telling me to construct it, so I went ahead and cut 4 of them. And maybe not in this clip, but I did cut 4 of them and sew them together like you would nowadays. And I imagine that the reason why it was like that was to conserve fabric, because this was during the wartime. This pattern was created in the 1940s during the wartime, and they had a lot of fabric rationing. So many of the patterns had a lot of construction methods that would conserve fabric and you would be able to make a dress or something that you could wear that didn't take up as much fabric because of the rationing. So here I'm just laying out all of my pattern pieces just so that I can make sure that everything will fit on the fabric, because I have been burned before where I started cutting into fabric, and then after I cut several of the pieces, I realized that I would have had enough fabric if I had cut all the larger pieces first. So I would always recommend that you cut all your large pieces first and then cut your small pieces, or at the very least lay them all out so that you know they will all for sure fit on the fabric. So that's what I'm doing here. Before cutting anything out, I just make sure that everything is going to fit correctly on the fabric. So here I'm going to be gathering down this top yoke piece to this center front piece here. And then the next step is to do the same thing on the bottom piece to gather this piece down into the waistband. And then the next step is to join the side seams and the shoulder seams. So here you can see that I have joined the side seams, the shoulder seams, and the waistband in the back, and added the waist ties, because I think that I was supposed to do that in a different step, so I had to kind of skip around and do it, so I didn't record most of that. So the next step here is to join my fashion fabric and my lining fabric. And to do that, I am just going to stitch around the inside of the neck hole, stitch those two together with right sides together. So here's the bodice, fully lined on the inside, and here's the sleeve opening. That's what it looks like. And here's the back with the tie. So I have put on the sleeve here, and when I gathered it, it's more gathered in the back than the front. That's all right. And on both sides I have the sleeves, and I press this in here. So I fold this over, and then I will have the zipper start at the bottom because there's supposed to be like a little bit of an opening, and then I'm going to connect those with a button and a loop. And I will say that I really like the method that they use to construct the pointed areas of this. So basically you're going to fold over the pointed area and press it in with like a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then you line those two seams up and top stitch along it. And you'll see me do that here, and it makes it come out so sharp looking, and it takes away a lot of the guesswork that we do in today's construction, where you're trying to make the seam look perfect but stitching it from the inside. That's really hard to do, and it's really hard to get a perfect looking point when you do it the way that we construct it today. But with this method, it comes out looking really nice and sharp, and it takes away a lot of that guesswork of making sure that everything is aligned perfectly. And I will probably use this method in the future on future projects that have this type of point, because it really looks much better and it lays flat. So here I'm just basting my zipper in, and this I do just to make sure that everything is aligned and correct and that everything looks good before I go back in and actually sew the zipper in place. So that would be the next step that I do, would be to sew the zipper in place on both sides. When I'm actually sewing in the zipper, you'll see that I'm holding open the teeth so that I can get as close as possible. So like right here, you can see that I'm pushing the teeth open, because sometimes the invisible zipper foot that I have, I don't actually like using it because it doesn't do as good of a job as I can do with my fingers and hold those zipper teeth open. So that's what I do in order to get as close as I possibly can to the zipper teeth and make it look invisible. So after putting in the zipper, it's time for lots and lots of hand sewing. So here I'm hand sewing the lining into place around the zipper so that it stays nice and flat and it's not got any raw edges. And then I'm also sewing along the waistband to attach that lining in place. So there's lots of hand sewing for that. And then I also go around the armhole, and I have attach the lining in a manner that it encloses all the raw edges around the armhole. So I'm doing that here, and then after that would be hemming. So here I'm doing the hem, and I have let the dress hang for at least 24 hours before hemming it. And in order to do the hem, I decided to use bias tape around the bottom. So first you just do right sides together. On that first fold in the bias tape, you kind of stitch there. It's usually about 1/4 inch. And then after that, you go in and press it towards the inside and hand stitch all the way around with a slip stitch. So that's what I'm doing here, sitting in front of the TV watching something while I hem this dress. And that is the final thing, the final step in making this dress, and then it will be off to the reveal. But before that, I have a couple of cats that come over to supervise. So that one cat there this is obviously Nightmare. And then you also have my cat Cuddles. They're both supervising me. And I don't know about you guys, if you have cats and you decide to hand sew something, all the cats want to get your thread simply because they think it's playtime. And so they're both supervising me right now and making sure that I do a good job. So here's the final product, and you can see that I did put in a little button closure there, but it did not stay closed, so I'm probably gonna have to do some adjusting on that. But I'm really happy with the final results. And here is some footage from my very special date. Here's me, and I decided to have just a little bit of brownie with my date. And here is my date. And he was a little bit of a messy eater. He was making a little bit of a mess with his food, but he is so adorable and the best date ever. And here we have another visitor who wanted his food. He kind of snuck in on the date too, but these are my cute little black kitties. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly talk about my final thoughts on this project. I really like this dress. I like how it came out. I like how it fits. Only notes on it are I just made this back a little too snug. So I took too much out of the pattern to make it tighter because it was too loose, and now it's a little too tight. So I can move, but I can't move my arms a lot. That's not going to stop me from wearing it. I will absolutely wear this dress, but for the next time, I will revert it back to the way it was supposed to be. It was also supposed to be a little bit gathered in the back down here, but I didn't realize that. So that's why I made it so much smaller, because I thought it was just too big, but it was supposed to be gathered down just like the front was. But the pictures don't really make that obvious. And so when I was constructing it, I kind of glazed over some of the instructions because sometimes it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I generally know how to construct a dress, so I just made it how I thought it was supposed to be made. And in doing so, I missed the part that I was supposed to gather the back down too, and took a bunch of that out of the pattern. So for future, I know now that it is supposed to be gathered in the back, and I will probably get rid of all of the reduction that I did in this yoke here and in the back for the next time that I use it, because I can't move. I can move. It's not that bad. It's just slightly too tight on me. So I just know for future not to do that. Otherwise, it's great. I love it. It fits really well and it's super flattering, and I will definitely be revisiting this pattern again. And I really enjoy vintage silhouettes, so I'm excited to make more, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like my content, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. I will probably be tackling my mock-up for my Fallout jumpsuit in the next video, and after that, I will be doing the jumpsuit live. So stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next video.